The story follows our protagonist Yang Jun, who transmigrates into the lowest tier of an underground dungeon. Just a moment ago, everything had felt completely normal, yet now his vision had gone completely dark. Thinking back to what had just happened, nothing seemed wrong. He had even paid this month's electricity bill, so there was no reason for the lights to go out. But then, a strange realization struck him. It didn't feel like darkness outside. Instead, it felt as if something was covering his eyes. A faint light suddenly appeared, breaking through the darkness like narrow beams shining from above. As the light grew stronger, his vision slowly returned. The moment he could see again, his eyes widened in shock. What appeared before him was not his normal body. His vision felt strange, his surroundings unfamiliar. He instinctively raised his hands, only to freeze when he saw them. Small, stubby, and completely unlike human hands. He quickly reached up and touched his head, only to feel something large and round. He could only stare at his new body in disbelief. His short, plump figure and strange appearance made it impossible to deny the truth. Somehow he had turned into a mushroom. He couldn't understand what kind of absurd situation he had fallen into. Trying to make sense of everything, he forced himself to think back to what had happened earlier. He realized that he had jerked himself to death and then reincarnated as a mushroom monster. Shouting in frustration, he looked at his ridiculous form, wondering how he was supposed to live like this. How could he even pick up girls looking like this? Desperation filled his voice as he cried out, demanding his original appearance back, his normal, handsome face. Just then, a voice suddenly echoed from behind, calling out to him as Brother Yang Jun. Hearing that name, his body stiffened. His eyes widened in surprise as he slowly turned his head toward the source of the sound. In the next moment, his gaze froze. Standing there was a stunning young woman. Her figure was graceful, her appearance elegant and alluring, surrounded by a soft, dreamy atmosphere filled with floating hearts and flowers. For a second, his mind went blank. Then his expression changed instantly. His eyes lit up as excitement rushed through him. All the frustration from before seemed to vanish in an instant. He stared at her in disbelief, thinking that even in this strange mushroom dungeon, there were actually such beautiful girls. But just as he was lost in that moment, something felt off. The girl he thought was such a beauty was actually just another small mushroom creature watching him quietly in confusion, wondering why Brother Yang Jun was suddenly saying so many weird things today. Yang Jun stood there awkwardly, his expression turning dull as an embarrassing realization crossed his mind. It turned out that everything earlier had simply been caused by his own impulses, leaving him feeling both speechless and defeated. Still confused, he looked toward the other mushroom creature and asked what it meant by his strange behavior. He wondered what he usually said in this world. The other mushroom calmly explained that mushroom men didn't speak much. Most of the time they only shouted simple things, intruders, and then, kill them. Hearing that, his face froze instantly. A drop of sweat slid down his cheek as disbelief filled his eyes. He couldn't process it at all. Before he could react further, a loud shout suddenly rang out from nearby. Intruders! His body stiffened as he turned toward the source of the voice. Not far away, two large figures were approaching. Their heavy footsteps echoed through the dungeon as their intimidating presence became clear. One was an orc archer, while the other was a muscular orc warrior holding a massive weapon. As they moved forward, the orc archer asked if the two of them would be fine without a healer. The orc warrior responded confidently, telling him not to worry. According to him, the monsters in this dungeon were at the lowest level, and dungeon monsters were usually stupid, with predictable movements and fixed attack patterns. To them, this was nothing more than an easy hunt. Just then, a sudden burst of killing intent erupted from the small mushroom creature as it leaped forward without hesitation. Its eyes glowed red, and its entire body spun with force as it charged straight at the orc. With a sharp cry, it attacked. In the next instant, the orc warrior swung his axe and cut through the mushroom monster. He smirked slightly and calmly remarked that everything was just as expected. The other agreed, saying it looked like they could easily clear the dungeon again today. At that moment, more mushroom creatures appeared. One after another they rushed forward, their red eyes glowing with hostility as they shouted the same simple command to kill. The cave quickly filled with their cries as the swarm charged toward the intruders. But the next second, the battlefield turned chaotic. A massive swing cut through the air. Bright red arcs flashed as the orc warrior unleashed a powerful attack. The incoming mushroom creatures were instantly torn apart, their bodies shattered into pieces as the strike passed through them. Yang Jun watched this from a distance, staring at the destruction in silence, unable to process what had just happened. Confusion filled his mind as he questioned why the mushroom men would charge forward so recklessly. He wondered if they didn't understand that they should run away when they couldn't win. The other calmly explained that mushroom men were nothing more than NPCs. Everything they did was predetermined, their actions bound by fixed rules. Unlike players, they had no true freedom. Hearing this, Yang Jun was startled. He looked toward the battlefield and questioned whether those two orcs were actually players. He had always believed players were humans. The other mushroom gave a simple answer. He admitted that he was only an NPC himself, one with a few extra lines of knowledge. Beyond that, he knew nothing more. Before the conversation could continue, a sudden force slammed into the ground nearby. The impact shook the area violently, sending debris flying as the surface cracked under the pressure. Moments later, one of the orcs raised his bow. With a steady motion, he drew the string back, his glowing eyes locking onto his target as he prepared to strike again. Panic spread instantly. Without waiting, Yang Jun turned and bolted forward, urging the other to hurry. His voice was filled with urgency as he demanded to know why he was still standing there. But the smaller mushroom remained calm. In a steady tone, he explained that fleeing was not something their kind could do. It simply wasn't part of the mushroom men's programming. Even so, the situation grew more dangerous by the second. Realizing there was no time left, Yang Jun stretched out his hand desperately, shouting for the other to grab it. At that exact moment, something strange happened. A sudden distortion flickered across the smaller mushroom's body. The air around him glitched unnaturally, as if reality itself were breaking apart. His form trembled under the distortion, and a system-like warning echoed. An anomaly had been detected. A flood of red warning messages filled the air, overlapping one another as the system repeatedly flagged a data anomaly. The distortion around the mushroom intensified, its body flickering as if it were being rewritten in real time. Despite the chaos, Yang Jun refused to hesitate. With determination, he grabbed onto him and shouted that he didn't care about programming or any anomaly. All that mattered was getting out alive. Without looking back, he pulled his companion and started running. From a distance, the two orcs watched in confusion. One of them frowned, unable to understand what he was seeing. He questioned since when mushroom men had ever run away and wondered if something was wrong. The other quickly concluded that it must be a bug. He calmly stated that once they got out, he would file a report and submit it to the system administrators. However, they had no intention of letting the two escape. One of them growled that bug or not, they couldn't allow those two slipping shrooms to get away. The other smirked and replied that he would log out later to report the bug, but first, they needed to finish this. He warned his partner not to die before that. The orc archer scoffed, baring his teeth as she shot back that there was no way she would die in a place like this. Meanwhile, Yang Jun and the small mushroom rushed deeper inside to find a way to survive. He looked around and asked the small mushroom if there were any usable weapons in the area. The other quickly replied that there weren't. Mushroom men were programmed to remain unarmed. Just then, something caught Yang Jun's attention. A large chest sat nearby, half buried among the rubble. He reacted in surprise, thinking that if there were treasure chests in this place, they might be able to find a weapon if they were lucky. However, the other immediately shut that idea down. He explained that those chests were designed exclusively for players, and mushroom men weren't allowed to open them. Before he could finish his sentence, the glitching presence surged again. Yang Jun's body flickered violently, surrounded by layers of flashing red warnings, data anomaly repeating over and over as the system struggled to process him. Then, in the next instant, something impossible happened. The chest burst open. Seeing this, the small mushroom stood frozen, staring at the open chest in disbelief. In his mind, he realized that the old brother Yang Jun could never have done something like this. The thought lingered, making it even harder to understand how he had suddenly changed so much. Meanwhile, Yang Jun looked into the chest and exclaimed in surprise that it was filled with valuable items. There was clearly a lot of good stuff inside. At that moment, a sudden force surged through the air. Without warning, the orc archer shot an arrow toward Yang Jun at high speed. Seeing the arrow coming, the small mushroom rushed toward Yang Yangjun to protect him. Even though she couldn't fully understand it, deep inside she admitted that she didn't know why she had taken such an action. Mushroom men were never programmed to save their teammates. Yet, despite that, her body had already moved. No matter what the system dictated, she had made up her mind. She would not allow anyone to hurt Brother Yangjun. The attack came down violently, slamming into the small mushroom and throwing it back, crashing near the opened chest. Without giving them a moment to breathe, the enemy prepared another strike. With cold confidence, he declared that the second shot was coming. In the next instant, a powerful force surged forward again, cutting through the air like a raging current. The energy spiraled wildly, tearing through everything in its path as it rushed toward its target. Yangjun barely had time to react before the force passed by, brushing past his body with terrifying speed. But before the attack even landed, he quickly moved and deflected the arrow with the short sword he got from the chest. From a distance, the orc archer's expression twisted in disbelief as she stared at the battlefield below. Her glowing red eyes narrowed, unable to accept what she had just witnessed. A mere lowest-level mushroom monster had actually deflected her arrow. Her gaze shifted to the ground where the arrow lay useless, proving it had truly been knocked away. But what shocked her even more was the sight of the opened treasure chest. That chest was meant only for players, yet somehow the mushroom creature had managed to open it. A bead of sweat rolled down her face as the realization sank in. This bug was far bigger than expected. She began to understand that what they had encountered this time was not just a minor glitch. Meanwhile, the orc warrior went to report this bug involving the mushroom monster. He explained everything to the management agent and told him that these were the bugs they had found during this run. He questioned it, wondering how long these dungeons had been running and why such bugs still existed. In response, a mysterious cloaked figure, surrounded by a faint purple aura, explained calmly that it was precisely because the dungeons had been running for so long that such oversights during maintenance were inevitable. According to him, it was only natural for small bugs like this to appear over time. After defeating the human coalition, the Great Lich grew concerned that the heroes, left with nothing to do, would eventually cause trouble. To prevent that, he created a dungeon system, designed purely for the heroes' entertainment. Since then, those heroes began entering the dungeons as players. Inside, they spent their time grinding monsters, collecting resources, and leveling up, simply to pass their boredom. Whenever players discovered a bug within the system, they would report it to the necromancers, who acted as administrators, and wait for them to fix it. However, this time was different. The orc archer decided she would not wait. With a determined expression, she declared that she would fix the problem herself. In the next instant, she drew her bow and unleashed another powerful shot. The arrow tore through the air at high speed, heading straight toward the mushroom creature. Yangjun reacted quickly. Its small body twisted and he deflected the arrow with his short sword. Watching this, he realized something. The body he possessed, despite being low level, had surprisingly decent base stats. Its movements were fast and flexible, far better than expected for such a creature. Just as he was admiring his body, arrows suddenly rained down relentlessly, slicing through the air in rapid succession and striking the ground with sharp impacts. Yangjun kept moving, dodging and weaving as the barrage continued without pause. Even so, he quickly realized a problem. Despite his agility, closing the distance under such continuous fire was not easy, especially with his short legs limiting his speed. As he retreated slightly, his gaze shifted toward the nearby treasure chest. A thought crossed his mind, wondering if there was anything he could use to block the incoming arrows. At that moment, he got an idea. He quickly cut the treasure chest lid, grabbing a piece of equipment and using it as a shield. With quick movements, he raised the object to block the attacks. Arrows struck against it one after another, producing sharp metallic sounds as each impact was deflected. Meanwhile, the orc archer stared in disbelief as the scene unfolded before her. She couldn't understand what she was seeing. A mere mushroom creature was not only dodging attacks but had even picked up a chest lid and was using it like a shield. The situation felt completely absurd to her. As she continued watching, a strange thought surfaced in her mind. The way the mushroom moved, reacted, and defended itself, it all felt too familiar, almost identical to how a player would act. However, she did not stop attacking. She continued firing at Yang Jun, not letting him close the distance, while Yang Jun used the treasure chest lid to block the arrows. In the next instant, he surged forward, closing the distance in a sudden burst of speed. His small body moved with precision as he leaped straight toward the attacker. Before the orc archer could fully react, Yang Jun had already reached her. Launching upward, he aimed directly at her body. In a single decisive strike, the Mushroom Man's attack landed cleanly. Blood burst outward as the enemy's body went limp, collapsing heavily onto the ground. The battlefield fell silent for a moment, leaving only the small mushroom figure standing there with a weapon in hand. Then, a glowing interface suddenly appeared before him. It announced that he had achieved first blood. Along with it came new abilities. He had unlocked the Mushroom Man racial talent, Mycelial Network. Through it, he could connect with his minions, transmit information and spores, and even share their skills and experience. Once enough experience was gathered, he could level up. Another ability followed. Plant Mushroom, allowing him to plant himself or allies on corpses or nutrient-rich areas to absorb nutrients, recover health, and even acquire the enemy's class and skills. There was also a form-switching ability, letting him shift between his mushroom form and a reshaped form. Yang Jun paused, slightly stunned. The realization slowly sank in. He wondered if he had really obtained a system. But then, thinking about his current situation, being reincarnated as a mushroom man, it didn't feel that surprising anymore. Without hesitation, he activated his new skill. As his body pressed against the fallen enemy, thin roots extended from him and pierced into the corpse. They spread rapidly, absorbing everything within. A strange tingling sensation coursed through his entire body. Then, the feeling intensified. A wave of pleasure surged through him, overwhelming his senses. His body trembled as energy flowed wildly inside him. It felt incredibly good, almost intoxicating. He couldn't control the sensation anymore. As the energy continued to flood his body, he felt like something was about to happen. Something big. But suddenly he remembered the small mushroom who had blocked the arrow to save his life. Looking at her, Yang Jun spoke with quiet determination, saying that she had blocked an arrow for him, and now it was his turn to save her. Without wasting another second, he activated his skill once again. Thin glowing tendrils extended outward, piercing into the body as the skill took effect. The energy gathered rapidly, concentrating into a single point. It pulsed and twisted, forming a strange luminous core. Then, in an instant, it expanded. A radiant pinkish-red structure began to grow upward, rising from the body like a living pillar. It shimmered with energy, its surface glowing as countless particles floated around it. The energy burst outward, shattering the ground and sending fragments flying in all directions. Within that radiant storm, a silhouette slowly took shape. Standing before the Mushroom Man, a slender figure emerged from the glowing light. The outline of a woman became clearer with each passing second, her body forming completely as the energy faded. Yang Jun stared ahead in shock and excitement, letting out a loud cry as his eyes turned into heart shapes, completely captivated by what stood before him. As the light finally disappeared, a beautiful woman stood there calmly. She had long hair tied up neatly, her expression composed and slightly cold. Her red and black dress shimmered faintly, fitting her perfectly as she stepped forward with elegance. Then a system interface appeared, displaying her newly formed status. She had become a level 2 Mushroom Man archer, ranked as a guard with agility as her primary strength. Her racial talent, Mycelium, allowed her to extend fungal networks to absorb nutrients from enemy corpses and heal herself. During this process, she could also take in the enemy's special skills and racial abilities. Among the absorbed powers was Orc Berserk, a skill that increased her damage significantly for a short duration. She specialized in ranged attacks and possessed a unique ability, Parasitic Spore Bullet, allowing her to fire spores that drained enemies' nutrients while restoring her own health without being easily noticed. The newly formed subordinate knelt respectfully before him, lowering her head as she greeted him as her chief. With a calm and obedient tone, she asked him to give her a name. At that moment, a system notification appeared, informing him that he had successfully cultivated his first Mushroom Man subordinate and prompting him to name her. Yang Jun paused, slightly surprised. He wondered to himself if mushroom men were usually nameless, finding the idea of giving a name somewhat unfamiliar. Tilting his head, he fell into thought, quietly considering what name would suit her. After a brief moment, his eyes widened as an idea struck him. Raising his hand, he decisively declared that she would be called Sai Feng. Hearing this, the woman immediately accepted it without hesitation. She lifted her head and acknowledged the name, stating that from that moment on she would be known as Sai Feng. Without wasting time, Sai Feng looked at him and asked what their next move would be. She questioned which instance realm they were going to clear next. Yang Jun responded calmly, reminding her that they were not players but monsters, mere NPCs in this world. Right now, their main objective was simple: to hunt down and kill the remaining player. Meanwhile, the orc warrior went out to report the bug. He then got the notification that his partner had been killed. He questioned how Labu could have been killed by something as worthless as a mushroom man. He looked around carefully, analyzing the scene. To him, it made no sense. A normal level 1 mushroom man should not have been capable of doing something like this. The thought lingered in his mind, growing heavier with each second. Then suddenly, realization struck him. His eyes widened as he muttered that it could only mean one thing: a rare elite. Turning his gaze toward the distance, he spotted a small figure standing far ahead. A grin slowly spread across his face as excitement replaced his shock. He admitted to himself that this trip had been worth it after all. Rare elites were known to drop valuable loot, and this could be a huge opportunity. His red eyes gleamed with greed as he clenched his hand, imagining the rewards. If luck was on his side and he managed to get a piece of blue-grade equipment, he could make a fortune. Without hesitation, he activated his skill, Orc Charge. In the next instant, his massive body burst forward with explosive speed, tearing through the ground as debris scattered in all directions. The distance between him and the Mushroom Man closed in a flash. However, Yang Jun quickly dodged the attack. The orc's massive body crashed down with overwhelming force, kicking up dust and debris. Blood splattered from his arm. From the side, Yang Jun watched carefully, a bead of sweat forming as he assessed the situation. It became clear that this warrior was far tougher than the archer from before. A single slash had only managed to leave a minor wound. The orc's eyes burned with anger as a dark grin spread across his face. He snarled, unable to believe that a mere mushroom man had managed to hurt him at all. However, before he could attack again, Yang Jun quickly ran as fast as he could and hid on the other side of a massive door. On the other side of the door was an empty cave entrance, and a wooden bridge stood in silence. The orc smashed through the wooden structure with brute force, splintering planks and scattering debris across the ground. Dust rose into the air as the broken bridge creaked under the destruction. He stopped and looked ahead, spotting Yang Jun standing at the edge of the platform. The orc narrowed his eyes, confused. It was just standing there, staring blankly. It wasn't running away anymore. A strange feeling crept into his mind. For a moment, he wondered if this was some kind of trap. But he quickly dismissed the thought, reminding himself that it was nothing more than an NPC. Meanwhile, Yang Jun slowly raised his hand. Without hesitation, he lifted a finger and made a mocking gesture. The moment the orc saw that, his expression twisted with rage. Veins bulged on his forehead as anger exploded inside him. He roared furiously, shouting that the Mushroom Man dared to mock him. The orc's anger exploded completely. Letting out a furious roar, he charged forward, gripping his massive axe as he swore he would chop the Mushroom Man into paste. Without slowing down, he leapt high into the air, raising his weapon above his head. His body twisted mid-air as he prepared to bring down a crushing blow. But in the next instant, something felt wrong. A flicker of confusion crossed his face as he realized the Mushroom Man had already moved. Before he could react, his attack missed completely. The orc crashed down with tremendous force, slamming into the water below. A massive splash erupted, sending waves and broken wood scattering everywhere. The orc surfaced from the water in a furious rage, shouting that the despicable mushroom monster had actually tried to ambush him. From above, Yang Jun observed calmly. He pointed out that in his panic the orc had even dropped his weapon, and now, with his body submerged, his movements were restricted by the water. In the next instant, Yang Jun moved. With a swift motion, he leapt from the broken bridge and launched a sharp, spinning attack downward. The strike cut cleanly through the air and landed on the orc, drawing blood as the blade tore into his shoulder. Even then, the orc refused to back down. Snorting coldly, he declared that even without a weapon and with his movement limited, there was no way such a weak creature could deal any real damage to him. But before he could finish that thought, in the very next moment a sharp attack cut through the water with incredible speed. An arrow pierced straight into his body, blood bursting out as the strike landed cleanly. His eyes widened in shock, his body trembling as the sudden pain hit him. Before he could react, another blow followed immediately, slicing through him again and sending more blood scattering into the water. Clenching his teeth, the orc roared in fury, demanding to know who was sneak attacking him. But there was no time to react. Another strike tore through his back, forcing his body forward as the relentless attacks continued one after another, each hit faster and more precise than the last. It was Saifeng who was sneak attacking the orc warrior. The water slowly calmed as the orc's body sank, leaving behind a dark cloud of blood spreading across the surface. On the broken edge of the dock, Yang Jun stood silently, watching. A system notification appeared, confirming that the orc warrior had been eliminated. Moments later, the orc's lifeless body was dragged onto the shore, lying motionless. Beside it, Yang Jun stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the fallen enemy. Calmly, he declared that it was finally his turn. Red energy began to gather, flowing like threads of light into the corpse. The energy wrapped around the body, pulsing and reshaping it. A system message appeared. Its appearance was being reshaped. With a sudden burst, Yang Jun transformed into his human form. He examined his hands, a smile spreading across his face as he laughed, saying that he had finally been molded back. Not far away, Saifeng noticed the sudden change. Her eyes widened in shock as she called out to her leader, asking what exactly was swinging down there. Yang Jun, still adjusting to his new body, suddenly noticed something falling and panicked for a moment, but it was just an axe handle. Relieved, he quickly picked it up and laughed awkwardly, saying it had scared him for a second. He admitted that he thought he had forgotten to wear clothes and ended up exposing himself. Right after that, a system panel appeared before him. It displayed his current status. He had reached level 2 and was now the Mushroom Man Chief Yang Jun. His rank was Chief, and his class had become a Blue Warrior, with Strength as his primary stat. His racial talent, Mushroom Man Mycelium, allowed him to extend mycelium after being injured to absorb nutrients from enemy corpses or other substances to heal himself. During the healing process, he could also absorb the enemy's special skills and racial talents. Another section showed that he had absorbed the Orc Berserk ability. It had a cooldown of 5 minutes, and once activated, it increased his damage by 30% for 20 seconds, making him especially strong in close combat. A second notification appeared, stating that his plant mushroom skill had upgraded. Now he could separate spores from his body and plant them on enemy corpses or other nutrients to grow soulless mushroom minions. These minions would share their experience with him and could even be transplanted onto other minions. The system also showed that he could currently control 2 minions. A final notification listed additional loot, 2 magic pouches capable of compressing and storing a small number of items such as weapons. After going through everything, Yang Jun looked around and asked how they were supposed to get out of this place. Saifeng calmly explained that they were currently on the bottom floor of the mushroom dungeon. To escape, they would have to fight their way up, 1 floor at a time. Hearing that, he frowned slightly and questioned why level 1 orc players could enter directly. She answered that players had special privileges. They could choose to enter the lowest level dungeons directly, unlike monsters. Yang Jun looked at her with curiosity and asked how she knew all of that. Calmly, Saifeng explained that she had learned it from the players' conversations back when she was still an NPC. Hearing that, he didn't hesitate. With determination in his voice, he said that in that case, they should fight their way out, 1 floor at a time. The two of them began moving forward through the dungeon until they reached a fork in the path. Stopping there, he looked around and asked what lay on each side. Saifeng answered that the left path led to a level 1 slime floor, while the right path led to a graveyard. After hearing that, Yang Jun quickly made a decision. He told her to go to the slime floor and grind experience, while he would head to the graveyard and check it out himself. Saifeng looked at him, confused, and asked what was so good about exploring a graveyard. A faint, confident look appeared in Yang Jun's eyes as he replied that it might be a graveyard now, but in the future it would become their territory. As he moved deeper into the dungeon, Yang Jun picked up some ragged clothes along the way and put them on. Soon he stopped and sniffed the air. The foul smell hit him immediately, thick and overwhelming. He quietly thought that it was just as expected from a graveyard. The stench could be sensed even from far away. Looking up, he noticed a large opening above. It became clear to him that garbage, corpses, and all kinds of waste were being dumped down from that hole. When he stepped further inside, the full scene revealed itself. The ground was littered with scattered bones, broken skeletons, and piles of discarded trash. He observed the area carefully and realized that even though these remains had been there for a long time, there were still some residual nutrients left within them. As he searched through the piles, several items caught his attention. One was a mixture of residual large potion and humus. Another was a dark, sticky blend of residual tar and humus. There was also a torn magic book mixed with soil and decay. Seeing all this, he understood that even this place of death still held value. Yang Jun looked at the scattered remains and calmly concluded that, aside from Sai Feng, he could still plant one more mushroom minion. He stretched out his hand and in the next moment, strands of glowing red energy spread outward, weaving through the bones and corpses on the ground. The energy pulsed and gathered, drawing nutrients from the remains as it condensed into a single point. The ground trembled slightly as something began to take shape. Flesh and energy intertwined, forming a small but powerful figure. Soon a new mushroom creature emerged. Its body burned with intense flames, radiating heat as fire flickered around it. A system panel appeared, revealing its identity. It was a level 2 pyro shroom, with fire as its primary attribute. It possessed a skill called Pyroblast, capable of launching explosive flames at enemies while engulfing them to absorb nutrients. Another skill, Blazing Sprint, allowed it to use fire to boost its movement speed by 50%. Yang Jun observed the newly created minion and studied it carefully. After a brief moment, he remarked that although it looked quite imposing, its size was still a bit too small. As he was looking at his newly created minion, he suddenly sensed something and turned his head, his expression sharpening. In the next instant, blue lightning burst out toward his body, crackling violently. His eyes widened as he reacted instantly, his body moving with explosive speed. He launched forward, his figure streaking through the air like a bolt of lightning. A sharp arc of energy shot downward and slammed into the ground with a loud impact. As the dust settled, something began to emerge from the darkness below. A system panel appeared, revealing the creature's identity. Level 2, Graveyard Dominator, Lightning Snail. The creature slowly revealed itself, its massive shell wrapped in flickering blue lightning. Electric currents crawled across its body as it moved, giving off a dangerous aura. Yang Jun observed it closely and quickly understood the situation. It was a monster that fed on humus, making it a direct competitor to the mushroom men within the same ecological niche. A faint smile appeared on his face as he turned his gaze toward his newly created minion. Calmly, he declared that it was time for the newly planted pyro shroom to prove its worth. The pyro shroom gathered blazing energy above its head, forming a bright, burning sphere of fire. The flames swirled violently, growing hotter and more intense with each passing second. With a sudden release, it launched the attack. Pyroblast. The flaming projectile shot forward at high speed, tearing through the air as it descended toward the lightning snail. Sparks and heat trailed behind it, lighting up the dark pit. The lightning snail reacted instantly, its body crackling with blue electricity as it attempted to counter. Lightning surged outward, colliding directly with the incoming fireball. For a brief moment, fire and lightning clashed mid-air, creating a violent burst of energy. But the next second, the pyroblast broke through. The blazing sphere slammed into the ground with overwhelming force, triggering a massive explosion. Flames erupted outward in all directions, engulfing the surrounding area in a fiery blast. Bones and debris were thrown into the air as the shockwave spread across the pit. From a distance, Yang Jun watched calmly as the explosion consumed everything. The aftermath of the explosion had barely settled when the lightning snail, its body scorched and crackling with blue electricity, retaliated. Sparks of lightning gathered at its feelers before surging forward in a violent discharge, streaking across the ground with blinding speed. Electricity tore through the battlefield, carving lines into the earth as it rushed toward its target. At that moment, the pyro shroom reacted instantly. Activating its skill Blazing Sprint, flames erupted around its small body. Boosted by fire, its movement speed surged dramatically as it dashed across the ground, leaving behind a trail of heat and embers. From a distance, Yang Jun observed calmly. In his mind, he noted that the snail monster moved extremely slowly, making it a clear weakness that could be fully exploited. With its speed advantage, the pyro shroom continued its assault. The blazing fireball descended rapidly from above, glowing with intense heat as it fell toward the battlefield. In the next instant, it struck the ground. A violent explosion erupted, flames bursting outward in all directions. The impact shattered the surface, sending debris flying as a massive wave of fire engulfed the area. The force of the blast shook the surroundings, leaving behind scorched earth and rising smoke. Within the aftermath, the lightning snail lay on the ground, its body charred and smoking. The electricity that once surrounded it flickered weakly before fading away. From above, Yang Jun watched the scene calmly while the pyro shroom stood below, its flames still burning. As the smoke slowly cleared, it became clear that the attack had completely overwhelmed the enemy. Yang Jun frowned slightly and told them to stop wasting time. He ordered them to hurry and check whether the enemy was truly dead. Below, the pyro shroom raised its hand, still surrounded by flickering sparks and fading lightning. Suddenly, the ground trembled. In the next instant, the lightning snail was not dead at all. Its body surged with violent blue electricity as it burst forward with explosive speed, tearing across the battlefield and leaving crackling energy in its wake. The pyro shroom was caught off guard and sent flying by the sudden movement, electricity ripping through the air around it. The lightning snail charged forward, its entire body wrapped in lightning, carving a path across the ground as debris scattered everywhere. Seeing this, Yang Jun leaped down from above without hesitation, his body cutting through the air as he aimed straight toward the creature. But the lightning snail twisted its body mid-air and avoided the attack cleanly. Yang Jun's attack landed firmly on the ground. The lightning snail smirked mockingly and declared that the attack could not hit it. Just then, the lightning snail launched a sneak attack on Yang Jun from behind, cutting through the air at terrifying speed. He remained calm, slightly turning his body as the attack barely missed him. In the next moment, multiple electric strikes crashed down around him, forming a chaotic storm of lightning. Red energy circles flashed beneath his feet as the attacks exploded one after another, tearing apart the ground. Yang Jun moved swiftly within the chaos, dodging every strike with precise movements, his figure weaving through the storm without hesitation. The lightning snail lunged forward again, its body crackling with energy. Yang Jun met it head-on, his strike colliding against the creature's charge. The lightning snail smirked and remarked that it was still as slow as a snail. However, in the next instant, Yang Jun's eyes narrowed slightly. He realized something was wrong. After discarding its heavy shell, the creature's speed had changed completely. The lightning snail streaked across the battlefield like a bolt of lightning, leaving glowing trails behind as it moved along the walls at extreme speed. Yang Jun looked up at the creature and let out a faint smile. He calmly remarked that it made sense. Without its house, the snail's body had become much lighter. In the next instant, the lightning snail shot forward again, its body wrapped in crackling electricity. Blue arcs of lightning spread wildly across the ground as it rushed in, leaving behind a glowing trail. Yang Jun's expression sharpened as he focused on its movement. Suddenly, Yang Jun tilted his body mid-air, and a blazing fireball roared past behind him, launching a sneak attack on the lightning snail. Flames roared through the air as blazing fireballs shot forward at terrifying speed, tearing across the battlefield. Lightning crackled wildly as the lightning snail darted across the rocky ground, its small body leaving streaks of electric light behind it while explosions rained down around it. The fire attacks continued relentlessly, crashing into the ground one after another, sending shockwaves and debris flying everywhere. From a distance, Yang Jun watched calmly, his gaze fixed on the lightning snail as it moved with incredible speed, dodging every incoming attack with ease. It let out a loud, mocking laugh, declaring that Yang Jun still could not hit it. It arrogantly claimed that their speeds were not even on the same level and that every single attack had completely missed. Yang Jun, however, remained calm. A faint smile appeared on his face as he revealed the truth. He stated that he had not missed at all, because from the very beginning he was never aiming at the lightning snail in the first place. In the next moment, the ceiling above the cave began to collapse, massive chunks of rock breaking loose and falling downward. The lightning snail looked up as debris rained from above, quickly realizing what Yang Jun had been planning all along. It muttered that Yang Jun had aimed at the ceiling to trigger a cave-in. Even as rocks continued to fall, the lightning snail remained confident. It declared that such an attack still would not be able to hit it. At that moment, Yang Jun took advantage of the smoke cover and activated his skills Orc Berserk and Orc Charge, bursting forward through the collapsing rubble at terrifying speed, his body wrapped in violent red energy, smashing through rocks as he charged straight ahead. The lightning snail was caught off guard for a moment as it watched the sudden assault emerge from within the chaos. It exclaimed in shock that Yang Jun was using the thick smoke and falling debris as cover to hide his true attack. However, the lightning snail remained calm, convinced it could still evade the attack. It confidently declared that it could still dodge, but in the next instant, Yang Jun burst out from the chaos at close range. The sudden strike caught the lightning snail off guard as the attack slammed directly into its body. The impact sent it crashing down violently, smashing into the ground as rocks and dust exploded outward. For a brief moment, everything shook. Then realization dawned on the lightning snail. It understood that within the surprise attack, Yang Jun had hidden yet another layer of surprise. After defeating the lightning snail, a system notification appeared, announcing that the electric scorpion had been destroyed. Nutrient points began increasing, and the shroom soldier spores started cultivating. A surge of energy burst outward as a crimson aura spiraled around Yang Jun's body, forming a powerful vortex of light that spread across the ground. A system notification appeared, informing him that both he and Saifeng had leveled up to level 3. It stated that the number of shroom soldiers he could cultivate had increased to 3. At the same time, he had learned a new skill, Etherealize. This ability allowed him to place his shroom soldiers into an ethereal state through his mycelial network, enabling them to recover faster while absorbing nutrients and significantly increasing their combat power. Moments later, another notification appeared, announcing that a new shroom soldier had been planted, Volt Shroom. It explained that this shroom soldier possessed an electric attribute, was extremely fast, and could convert absorbed nutrients into electrical energy. It could also release electric shocks to attack enemies. As the energy gathered, a small blue figure formed within the swirling power. The Voltshroom emerged, surrounded by crackling lightning, its body glowing as it entered an ethereal state. The system displayed its status, Level 3 Voltshroom. Beside it, another figure ignited in blazing flames. The Pyroshroom stepped forward, engulfed in fire, also entering its ethereal state. Its level was shown as Level 2. Yang Jun looked at the two shroom soldiers with satisfaction. With a calm expression, he remarked that things looked good and that they should clean the area quickly. He then declared that from now on, this place would serve as their base camp. After a moment, his gaze shifted into the distance as he thought about Saifeng and wondered how she was doing, noting that it had been a while since any experience had been gained. A hint of concern appeared in his thoughts as he considered the possibility that she might have encountered a troublesome enemy. The scene shifted to another part of the cave, where the ground was covered with the shattered remains of slime creatures, their bodies pierced and scattered like targets. At the edge of the rocky slope, Saifeng stood firmly, her hand resting near her weapon as she looked up with a cold expression. In front of her stood a Level 2 Slime King. In a sharp voice, it demanded to know if Saifeng was the one shooting its underlings like target practice. The Slime King stared at her, its single eye narrowing as it spoke, saying that it felt like it had seen her somewhere before. Before it could react further, Saifeng's attack struck its body, piercing straight through with force. Seeing this, the Slime King became furious. It complained loudly that it had not even finished speaking yet, and she had already attacked. Without hesitation, the Slime King's body surged violently. Its gelatinous form stretched forward at high speed, launching a powerful counterattack straight toward Saifeng. But before it could fully overwhelm her, Saifeng's sharp arrows pierced into its body one after another, tearing through its gelatinous form. The Slime King's body rippled violently as multiple holes opened across it, yet it showed no sign of weakening. With a scoff, the Slime King declared that such attacks were useless, mocking her efforts as nothing more than poking holes in its body. Its form suddenly stretched downward at terrifying speed, its entire mass compressing into a long crushing strike as it slammed toward Saifeng, sending her across the ground. With a cold, mocking tone, it declared that it was nothing like those underlings. Its body, it explained, was highly malleable, and such attacks would do nothing more than make it lose a bit of fluid at most. Its gelatinous form slowly absorbed moisture from the ground beneath it, continuously replenishing itself, so physical attacks were meaningless against it. In the next instant, its massive body surged upward, forming a gigantic fist that shot toward Saifeng with explosive speed. The air howled as the attack descended, its overwhelming force crashing straight down toward Saifeng, intent on crushing her completely. But in the next moment, something felt wrong. The Slime King's massive, gigantic fist was torn into pieces, and its body began to wobble unnaturally. Its form started losing stability, collapsing in on itself without control. Confusion filled its voice as it questioned why its body was suddenly breaking down. Looking closer, it noticed small mushrooms growing across its surface. Shock spread across its expression as it realized something was terribly off. It muttered in disbelief, wondering when those mushrooms had even appeared. The ground beneath it had dried up completely. The moisture it relied on was gone, drained away by those very mushrooms spreading across its body and the earth below. Its voice trembled as it questioned when those parasitic mushrooms had taken hold of it. In the next moment, realization struck. When Saifeng attacked it with those arrows, the spores had been attached to them from the very beginning. Seeing this, it finally recognized Saifeng. She was the pink-cap mushroom man. With a heavy crash, the severed minotaur horn fell to the ground, splashing into the scattered remains of the slime. Saifeng stood calmly over the battlefield, her posture relaxed as the fight came to an end. A system notification appeared before her, stating that the minotaur horn had been devoured. At the same time, a new ability was unlocked, mycelial art. It allowed Chen Guang to use their own mycelium to generate bowstrings and arrows, and those mycelial string arrows could even fire magic skills. Another notification followed, confirming that the minotaur horn had been placed into the magic pouch. Around her, glowing strands of pink energy spread outward like roots, connecting to the remains of the fallen slime. The system indicated that nutrients were being absorbed from the slime's corpse. Shortly after, another message appeared, announcing that experience had significantly increased, and both Saifeng and Yangjun had leveled up. Saifeng had leveled up to level 4 and unlocked mycelial art, granting the ability to generate bowstrings and arrows from her own mycelium, with those arrows capable of releasing magic skills. At the same time, Yangjun also reached level 4 and unlocked probe shroom. This ability allowed him to cultivate probe mushrooms across the mycelial network for reconnaissance, monitoring, and information gathering. It also granted him the power to transplant soulless minions through the network, expanding his control over the battlefield. Standing at the edge of the battlefield, Saifeng looked down calmly as the remaining enemies were already being handled. Below, the newly planted shroom soldiers continued their work, steadily cleaning up the area. She remarked that she had originally come to help clean up after finishing her task elsewhere, but she had not expected the two newly planted shroom soldiers to have nearly completed everything already. Yang Jun responded casually, saying that it was fine since the area was not too big anyway. As he examined the minotaur horn, he noted that the material was extremely good. In his opinion, it was far superior to the broken cleaver he had obtained from a treasure chest before, and even better than the axe used by the level 1 orc player. However, he added that the only problem was that they did not have a craftsman who could turn it into a proper weapon. Saifeng asked what they should do, wondering if they should go catch one. Yangjun raised a finger with a confident smile and replied that their newly learned skill was perfect for this situation. He then suggested that they look around for any nearby players or corpses that might possess craftsman skills. As he spoke, a faint red glow spread from his hand, and strands of energy began to extend outward, signaling the activation of their new ability. The moment the skill was activated, strands of glowing red energy spread rapidly across the ground, forming a vast and intricate mycelial network. The energy pulsed like veins beneath the surface, extending in all directions as it searched the surrounding area. Soon the system confirmed that the mycelial network was spreading. From within the cracks of the rocky terrain, small probe mushrooms began to sprout one after another, quietly observing their surroundings. Through them, information flowed back instantly. As the connection stabilized, Yang Jun sensed something unexpected. Nearby, a group of players was engaged in a fight. Shifting his focus through the network, the scene became clear. In a hollowed-out area, several trolls had surrounded a lone figure. One of them shouted coldly, telling the man to stop running, making it clear there was nowhere left for him to escape. They demanded that he surrender obediently and return with them to forge weapons. However, the dwarf-looking man refused without hesitation. His eyes burned with anger as he declared that he would rather die than go back and live as a slave. He roared that his clansmen had already been worked to death while serving them, and he would never follow the same fate. Hearing his defiance, one of the trolls sneered and gave the order without mercy. In the next instant, the troll lunged forward with killing intent, its blade cutting through the air as it aimed to strike him down. If he refused to submit, then he would die right there. Moments later, the dwarf man's body lay still, pierced through, his life already gone. There was no saving him anymore. Watching from above, Yangjun let out a quiet sigh, admitting that he had arrived just a step too late. Saifeng, who was standing beside him, asked why she could not see anything clearly through the network. Yangjun calmly explained that she needed to extend her mycelium further and connect fully to the network to gain vision. Following his guidance, she focused. Moments later, the connection stabilized. Through the small mushrooms growing from the corpse, her vision suddenly expanded. She could now see through them as if they were her own eyes. Realization struck her, and she acknowledged that it was true. She could see now. Since he could not save the living, he decided that he would at least make use of the dead. To him, it was simply another form of existence, living in a different way. Without hesitation, he activated the next phase of his ability. The system responded as spores began to release through the mycelial network. Across the battlefield, the two mushroom soldiers stood ready as the glowing network beneath them pulsed. Streams of spores surged forward, weaving through the air and ground alike. In the next instant, a burst of energy erupted. The spores detonated with a sharp impact, spreading rapidly and engulfing the surrounding area. The entire space was swallowed by a glowing pink, swirling field as the mycelial network expanded to its limits, covering everything within its reach. A powerful transformation took place as the blazing figure of a dwarf emerged from the raging flames. His body burned with intense fire energy, his presence radiating strength and heat. A system panel appeared, revealing that he had become a level 4 pyroshroom dwarf craftsman. His primary stat was strength, and he possessed a fire infection attribute, granting him high resistance to flames. In addition to standard mushroom man abilities, his dwarf shroom body provided enhanced resistance against toxins and physical attacks. As a craftsman, he was naturally skilled in forging and creation, and with the fire attribute, his efficiency had increased even further. His special skill, Cannon Mycelium, allowed him to release a controllable chain of fire connected through the network, enabling vision sharing and damage amplification by absorbing nutrients. The newly transformed dwarf looked at his own hands in shock, struggling to comprehend what had happened. Calmly, Yangjun explained that the dwarf had been resurrected and turned into a mushroom soldier. From that moment on, he would be known as Firehammer. The dwarf hesitated, clearly wanting to say something, but before he could continue, Yangjun spoke again, revealing that his probe shrooms had already been tracking the trolls nearby. Meanwhile, a group of trolls continued their pursuit. One of them spoke in a crude tone, suggesting that if all the dwarf slaves died from exhaustion, then no one would be left to force into labor. One of the trolls snapped angrily, calling the other an idiot for his careless thinking. He then confidently declared that if the dwarves back at their base died from exhaustion, they could simply head into the dungeon and capture more. Another troll added that the dwarves were not completely extinct yet, as there were always survivors hiding deep within the dungeon. Just then, one of them noticed something unusual. His eyes narrowed as he questioned why mushroom men were present in this place. Looking ahead, he spotted a figure and wondered aloud, realizing that the mushroom men's nest should have been somewhere nearby, not here. Trying to make sense of it, one of the trolls assumed that the creature in front of them was probably a wandering elite monster that had somehow strayed into their territory. A cruel grin spread across his face as he declared that today was their lucky day. He did not expect to come across such an unexpected harvest. Without hesitation, the troll lunged forward, swinging his weapon with full force as he charged toward his target. The troll hurled his spear forward with full force, the weapon tearing through the air at incredible speed as it shot straight toward the mushroom warrior standing above. In response, the pyroshroom dwarf craftsman did not hesitate. Flames surged violently around his body as he raised his massive hammer high into the air. With a powerful motion, he brought it down, unleashing a blazing strike. The impact sent a fiery shockwave crashing across the ground, carving a burning trail through the rocky surface as the force spread outward in a destructive arc. The troll, caught in the blast, was thrown back as the explosion erupted violently around him. Fire and debris burst outward, engulfing the area in a storm of heat and destruction. As the flames settled slightly, the troll barely managed to avoid the full force of the attack. Breathing heavily, he muttered in shock that it had been a close call. But before he could fully recover, the massive hammer suddenly lifted again, flames roaring as it rose into the air on its own. The troll's eyes widened in shock, his expression stiffening as he realized something was wrong. In the next instant, the blazing weapon curved through the air and slammed down once more, striking with terrifying precision. The ground shattered under the impact, sending fire and debris flying as the troll was caught in the blast and thrown violently. Watching the scene unfold, the trolls were left stunned. They could hardly believe what they were seeing. One of them exclaimed in disbelief, realizing that the hammer was actually capable of automatically targeting enemies. Shock quickly turned into fear as they questioned how a mere level 3 elite monster could possess such high-level equipment. Meanwhile, the flaming hammer continued its assault, sweeping through the battlefield in a blazing arc, relentlessly chasing its next target. The blazing hammer roared as it slammed directly into the troll's body. However, the troll stopped the attack with his sword. He desperately swung his weapon upward, barely deflecting the incoming strike, but the flaming weapon curved mid-air, refusing to be stopped. In the next moment, the pyroshroom dwarf hooked his hammer onto a rock and shot forward, streaking through the air like a shadow wrapped in flames, spiraling downward as powerful currents carved through the space around him. Below, the trolls looked up, their expressions tightening as the incoming attack tore through the air with overwhelming force. One of them reacted instantly, twisting his body mid-motion as he charged forward. With a fierce grin and burning red eyes, he swung his weapon upward, meeting the incoming force head-on. But in that moment, something unexpected unfolded. A strange, glowing energy thread began to coil around the troll's arm, binding and tightening like a living thread. The threads wrapped around him completely, restricting his movement. Before he could break free, a burst of flames erupted at point-blank range. The explosion struck his body directly, fire and shockwaves tearing through him as his expression twisted in pain and disbelief. The attacker did not stop. Like a blazing meteor, the pyroshroom dwarf descended again, his entire form engulfed in fire. In the next instant, he crashed down violently. The ground shattered on impact, flames exploding outward as debris scattered in every direction. The troll's body slammed into the earth, consumed by the blazing inferno, as the entire battlefield trembled under the overwhelming power of the attack. Just then, another troll closed the distance in an instant, swinging his massive weapon to attack the pyroshroom dwarf. However, before his attack even landed, the pyroshroom dwarf snapped the troll's head to the side as blood burst into the air, his expression twisting in pain. The attacker did not slow down. He struck again and again. Each hit cracked through the air with relentless force, driving the troll backward across the ground. Before the troll could recover, another attack followed. He shot his hammer upward, smashing into the cavern ceiling. The force shattered the wooden pillars above, splintering them apart. Realization flashed across the troll's face. It had broken the support structure, causing a cave-in. Debris began to rain down as the entire cavern shook violently. The troll staggered backward as debris and dust filled the air, his body already battered from the earlier blows. Even so, he clenched his teeth and forced himself to stay focused. Despite the damage he had taken, he believed he could still evade the next attack. But the moment he looked up, a blazing hammer of fire crashed down with overwhelming force. The ground split apart on impact as flames erupted outward in a violent burst. The attack roared like an inferno, shaking the entire cavern. The flaming weapon struck again, tearing through the battlefield with explosive power. From above, countless blazing strikes rained down like meteors, engulfing the area in a storm of fire. The sky itself seemed to burn as explosions chained together one after another, leaving no space to escape. The troll's eyes widened as he stared at the overwhelming barrage. This time, there was no dodging it. The blazing explosions continued to erupt across the battlefield, flames devouring everything in their path. Amid the collapsing cave and scattered debris, a system notification appeared coldly. The giant deer player had been eliminated. The battlefield fell into chaos as fragments and dust rained down. From within the destruction, the pyroshroom dwarf stood firm, his body glowing red from the intense heat, the massive firehammer still burning in his grasp. Moments later, new system messages began to appear one after another. The craftsman firehammer had reached level 5. A new skill was unlocked: scrap recovery. With this ability, any garbage or waste struck by the hammer could potentially be broken down and recovered into usable materials. Weigo had also reached level 5, unlocking a new item, bundle foil. It was described as a rare and durable work hoop that could be assigned to subordinates, helping them handle daily tasks such as forging, gathering, and cultivation. In emergencies, it could even be equipped and used as a Jaeger. Meanwhile, Jifeng had also reached level 5, unlocking a new skill, instant backstep. This ability allowed him to teleport directly to an arrow he had fired, using an arrow thread as the connection. As the notifications faded, a voice came through, praising him for the victory and telling him that the coordinates would be sent soon, asking him to come and meet up. As he reached the coordinates location and saw Yang Jun, he was surprised, questioning whether their leader was actually human. Yang Jun explained calmly, telling him that the reshaped form of mushroom men was influenced by the race they had belonged to in life. Since he had been human before, his current appearance naturally resembled a human. Saifeng had also been human before being turned into a mushroom man by the Archmage, which was why her reshaped form appeared human as well. By that same logic, the others were roughly no different. After clarifying this, he shifted the topic and asked if the horn they had obtained could be used to forge some weapons. The pyroshroom dwarf examined the horn carefully and admitted that it was indeed a good material. However, he pointed out that they still lacked other necessary materials, and it did not seem like there were any nearby. Hearing this, Yang Jun calmly explained that this place was the Great Graveyard and more materials would arrive shortly. Moments later, the ground began to tremble as debris and objects started falling from above. The cave echoed with rumbling sounds as a large amount of materials crashed down, scattering across the ground, just as he had predicted.